playing the lottery in that case. But this is a numbers game. We kind of turn that off. It's a numbers game. The more organizations you reach out to, the more different things you ask for. Again, trying to be as specific to the interests of the grantor as possible. The more likely you are to get a flow of funds, and these things play off each other. It's appropriate to mention in a grant proposal that you were funded last year by such and such and such and such and such and such, and all organizations do, all grantors do due diligence about the organizations to whom they're giving funds. But it adds credibility if you say that last year or 6 months ago, some other organizations with recognizable names have given you funds, because it shows that others have already done due diligence and established your credibility, your integrity, your efficiency, and so on. They'll still do theirs, but it'll give them a feeling of comfort that they'll be much more likely to put your grant proposal to the top of the pile. Now, we're going to be talking more about all of these as we go along, but just to cover them on this particular slide, I've seen many circumstances. United Care had made an announcement a month or so ago that they were making grants available to small and medium-sized nonprofits, and so that's the nonprofit help desk clientele. And we reached out to a lot of our clients and said, hey, are you aware of this? Can we help you write a grant proposal? We actually helped quite a number of them write grant proposals. But we asked them to go through their criteria and come back to us if they were eligible. And it was surprising to me to find out that a lot of them are coming back to us without meeting the basic requirements. They had to be in a certain area. Some of them were not in that area. They had to have been in existence for a certain number of years. Some of them were just founded 6 months ago. So it's something that you've got to consider and look into, because the bottom line is it's going to take time, energy, resource to develop a grant proposal, and why waste it? If they're just going to look at a checklist and say, forget that one, you just spent a lot of time for nothing. Reviewing the documentation requirements, and as I said, we'll talk more about all of these. But you've got to have your paperwork in order. More when we actually get to that one. Identify the submission deadline. A lot of what I'm going to be saying today is common sense. So some things are more obviously common sense than others, but I'm mentioning it because it happens to be overlooked. And that includes, by the way, figuring that it'll take a certain amount of time to get the proposal from you to them. Everybody automatically thinks, oh, I'll just email it. Read the fine print. A lot of them don't want an email. Why? I don't know. But you've got to put it in an envelope and hand it to FedEx or US Mail and get it there. And however you do it, that's going to take some time. Organizing and writing the grant request, which is sort of self-evident, doesn't write itself, and understanding the submission mechanics, which as we'll see can vary from anything to send a Word document in an email to filling out this arcane, complex, difficult to use web form, which a lot of which are becoming fairly prevalent today among the larger funding providers. Okay. So we sort of broached on a lot of this in our introductory remarks. Different grantors have different social missions and agendas, and the synergies is not something that necessarily has to be blatant and explicit. It could be a matter of creative spin. You see the example that I have there with respect to education, and this is an actual real life example for an organization that we were helping to prepare a grant request for. Now, they were targeting to that point grantors that focused on education. This particular grantor was focusing on addressing the root causes of poverty. Now, it's self-evident. You just have to think about it. Poor education is definitely a significant cause of the perpetuation of poverty. Clearly, somebody who has a good education is much less likely to remain in a state of poverty. So you can talk about your remedial education and focus on the fact that students will do better. But if you talk about remedial education and focus on the fact that students will do better and thereby rise on the economic scale, So that little addition, and it's not just one sentence, but it should be something that permeates your proposal. That little addition will make the difference between this particular grantor tossing your application in the reject pile and actually reading it, because it legitimately addresses what they want to do, even though at first blush you may not have thought so. I mean, it's critical if you're starting off and going about doing that, to identify what you bring to the table that no one else in your particular neighborhood, area, whatever, is bringing to the table yet. This is a requirement, and then find somebody to get you going. Now, if you're starting off like that, you've got to start off small. I mean, you're not going to rent this huge office and hire a staff. It could be just you at the beginning, and living sort of subsistence, and operating on that basis. If you here, we'll talk more about this later. The social networking. How do you find this person? They don't just you call them an angel, but they don't just drop down from heaven. So you've got to look for them. Maybe lucky enough to find one in your extended circle. But if you go to a site like LinkedIn, for example, which is it's one of the more business-oriented social networking sites, and there are plenty of others. And there are lots and lots of groups on LinkedIn, on the other sites, Facebook, that deal with nonprofit organizations, and a lot of them are frequented by donors looking for worthy causes, and so get the word out. Now to some extent it's a crapshoot. You'll hit, you won't hit, but it doesn't really hurt to do that, and you've got to do both. You're much more likely to get something from your own networking than that way, but you should do both. If you're here and you want to get here, you don't just leap. You've got to do it stepwise, and it sounds like you've been growing. But it's the same way with when you're looking for funding. If you're a 10-person organization and you go approach United Way, just to pick an example. Now maybe that's a lousy example because they actually do fund very small organizations, but large. We call it large organization X. Where their idea of an organization is it's got 500 employees. You've got 10, so you don't really even exist. You're just so far below their radar that it doesn't pay for them to look at you. And of course, you don't feel good about that. But the problem is not you. The problem is that they're looking at you from a million miles away, and they're not seeing you. So start off a little bit more modestly. That example of the local bank is I think very apropos here. Let's say it's Astoria Federal Savings and Loan, a nice small community-oriented bank. It isn't Chase, it isn't Citibank. You put your account there. I mean, that's a generally good tactic, and a lot of nonprofits have several accounts in several different banks, for exactly that reason. And you walk in, you need to talk to the branch manager and say, hey, we're not just mom and pop. It's mom and pop, and there's 10 other people, and we've got 4,500 square feet, and we're providing this, that, and the other service. Once you've got a donor like that on your roster, and you sort of keep climbing up, you eventually reach a point where the organizations that look at names they recognize and numbers and so on, will start paying you some attention. That's all. It's a gradual process. A lot of organizations today, nonprofits, have pooled resources, have gotten together to simply enjoy economies of scale. Simply, something as mundane as buying supplies. You need 10 reams of paper. They need 10 reams of paper. You buy them together, you get the 20 ream price instead of each of you getting the 10 ream price. And if you start that way, and you sort of expand yourself, you each need a receptionist. But good and well, your receptionist is probably sitting there. Playing solitaire for 4 hours a day, and the other organizations also got a receptionist, and they're also playing solitaire 4 hours a day. Well, maybe you could pool a receptionist that way, and and that way keep one person real busy and save between the two of you save a salary. That kind of thing works, and if you put that into place, then that has nothing to do with approaching a donor for funds for you and funds for me. But organizations that start working together in that way very often find that they have commonalities in the services that they provide as well. You've got an accountant who audits your financial statements, of which we'll talk about momentarily. Maybe the accountant will give you both a better price if you do them together. As you start working together, and it all has to be built on a foundation of mutual trust, friendship. You ought to be in the same area. You ought to be about the same size. You ought to have known about each other, or personally, known some people in the organization for a while. But that kind of thing, is very, very helpful. Completely independent of going to a donor and saying, fund both of us. I mean, in my opinion, it's probably best if you partner with a nonprofit that does things that are completely different from what you do. And that way you can sort of expand the pool of people who are interested. I'm interested in either this or that, but they, together are doing both. So maybe I'll come to this event. Yeah.
Yeah. For example, I want to see if this is part of what you're speaking about. For example, we have a school and we provide building construction trades, plumbing, electrical, locksmith, computer repair, and that kind of HVAC, air conditioning, refrigeration. We do that free. And what we have to ask from our students, because we are lacking in funds, is for a $50 tax deductible donation. These courses go for 9 months, so our students are struggling when they come to us. And we come from 15 years old all the way up to 60 we've graduated. So would this work? An organization like ours, which provide these vocational skills, with an organization like yours, Big Brother, or anything that you do, include in your organization vocational skills, you get a grant for that, and then you give us the $50 per student. Does that work, something like that?
Well, there has to be a synergy. This course, the Nonprofit Help Desk course, is being funded by DYCD. So in a sense, we're getting a government organization helping a nonprofit to help other nonprofits, which is our motto.